One of the themes that keeps coming up in retreats like this, or in fact, any kind of even seminars nowadays, when people go to seminars and different kinds of business-related retreats, sooner or later they have to tap into parts of themselves that might be uncomfortable. I know when I used to be a layman and teaching at a college level courses for business and leadership, one of the biggest problems used to be individuals who could not possibly visualize themselves becoming successful. Even something as simple as designing a business card for themselves of this business that could give them all the success and whatever it was that they needed, that they wanted. But the closer they got to visualizing it, many people would become terrified. See, the person has to give themselves the permission to become successful, to even visualize scenes from their business. One interesting question I would give, I think it was interesting because I'd love playing that game in my head for years. Where's my office? This business that I don't have, and let's say I work from paycheck to paycheck, an employee somewhere, but I always wanted to have my own business, let's say. Okay, now you have it. The genie comes, boom, you have your business. What is the business? Sometimes people will run into that wall. They can't see it. They can't visualize it. Well, what's the name of the business? They don't know. Okay, what does your office look like? What is the chair made of? Is it wood? Is it leather? Is it standing up or is it sitting down? And when you're sitting on this chair, when you look forward, what do you see? Do you see windows like this? Or do you see a framed picture of someone or some degrees? How about when you swivel the chair? What do you see? Is outside, the scenery outside, is it the beach? That's what I used to like. The ocean right there, car parked outside. Nice, quiet. Who's your assistant? What's their name? Is it a male, female? What is it? How many colleagues do you have? See, all these images push the envelope, push your limits of acceptability of what it is that you could see yourself touching the future with. Touching the future with. So, why do I bring in such themes? Because we stand as obstacles on our own path. People come and say, I want to forgive. I practice forgiveness. How? I just say, I forgive you. And that's the end of that. Really? How well has it worked for you? You know, I was mentioning this the other day to someone about, I think I might have mentioned it here as well, where the brain has obviously hundreds of trillions of, maybe 100 trillion neurons, an adult. But they also discovered that the heart also has special neurons in the 90s. Anywhere from 40,000 to 50,000 neurons that are specific to the heart. The brain has no control over. They do not communicate. So you might, with all good intentions, go ahead and say, I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you. That's just the PFC, which is called the prefrontal cortex. That's the executive part of the brain, the conscious mind, the cognitive, the one that says, you know, makes decisions. Zero access to the heart. So when we're meditating, we are connecting these two for the first time. especially when you're bringing mindfulness in, without judgment. But we have come to believe that judgment is part and parcel of life. We have to judge to keep ourselves safe. Well, as we're judging, we are standing again on our path to experience forgiveness. So, why do I insist on primarily teaching metta? Because it is a feeling meditation, which allows you to connect these two. It's so special that Lord Buddha taught it the greatest amount of time. Often, I mean frequency. You see it again and again and again. People are practicing metta. He's giving them the instruction on metta. And the person really changes fast if they're doing it correctly. So I wanted to touch on some of the obstacles. So I'll call this obstacles to forgiveness. Sometimes some people will say, well, what does forgiveness have to do with metta? Everything. Everything. Because you don't have forgiveness in your heart towards you, it's impossible for you to feel metta, genuine metta. Otherwise, it's just lip service. And you've seen them if you've ever even read or listened to some sermon or read some sermon or some instructions on Buddhist metta practice. It's always a series of verbal, almost prompts, things that you tell yourself. And then hopefully it will have an impact. May I be happy, may I be happy, may my friends be happy, may my friends be happy, may my neighbor, may my enemy, may. Who's giving these metta? Who's giving this forgiveness? I don't know. Where are we getting the metta from? Is it in the market? Is it in a book? None of these places will have it. But we have to generate it. We have it in us. And when I say in us, it's in the body. Now we have to go finding it. How? People's bodies are full of tension. You don't believe me? Go to get a massage and hear the masseuse or masseur tell you, you're so stiff, you're like so tight here. Loosen up. Some people will have a hard time loosening up, even their shoulder, even their arm. Sometimes I see the shoulders go up when people meditate. Sometimes I have to go and say, okay, lower the shoulders down. It's too much. The person is locking the body like this. And we have the same attitude with the brain, with the mind. The brain is the organ of the mind. Let's not forget that. The brain is the organ of the mind. The mind, you cannot capture it, put it in a box. But the brain is a tool that can be used by the mind. But in all of this, the body gets to be the victim. But the body is also the way out. It is the way that we can liberate ourselves. You see, Lord Buddha would never have been able to awaken himself. Nibbana could never have happened unless he relaxed. This morning we were saying about Lord Buddha, before he became the Buddha, as Siddhartha, for 6.5 years, he was tight. He was serious, he was tight, forcing himself through the sits. Abusing the body. But that's what we also do. Maybe not in his, in his superlative way, but we nevertheless, in our own rights, we squeeze the gut, which is called often the third brain. Brain number 1, 2, and 3. The gut. It also has neurons, you know. Serotonin. It's there. So what do we do though? We tighten the gut. So many billions of people actually have gastrointestinal problems in the world today. We don't know how to loosen the belly. For about 6 months, the baby when they're born, they breathe from where? Not the chest. They breathe from the tummy. Try it next time you're laying on your back. Put your hand on your belly and let the belly go up every time you inhale. You can even try it now if you want. But the brain will go like, what is this? This is weird. This is weird. I'm supposed to breathe in with expansion of the chest and then go down. That's wrong. So we have to train the belly to relax, but we have tension there. So when you are thinking of meditation, you see so many different elements now as I'm presenting. Your body is very much part of your awakening process. And even if you don't care about waking up, awakening as in Nibbana, that's okay. Don't you want to feel calm and happy and relaxed? Don't you want to not drag things behind you, the hurt? Well, there we go. Obstacles to forgiveness. Forgiveness is the big problem that we have. We have a problem with forgiveness. That's what I mean. What does forgiveness entail? It involves resentment. You have done something to me. How could you have done that to me? I have done these things to you, and now this is how you return it. Or where did that come from? Why did you cause so much damage to me, etc.? So we pick a date, we pick a time in the past and say, aha, because of that, I'm going to not forgive you. I'm going to hold on to a grudge. Well, guess what? The first person who gets sacrificed in all of this is the person holding the grudge. The person who is feeling the pain. And who's closest to you than you? Nobody. You are your closest person to you. And that's why Lord Buddha says, imagine someone picking up something like a red hot coal. And there's that person who harmed you. And you pick it up, it's fiery, it's hot, it burns. You pick it up and with the intention of damaging them, getting even, and you toss it. You might hit the target, but most often than not, you will miss. Well, someone did get hurt, didn't the person who tossed it? In fact, before you tossed it, you were also holding it. Some people hold a grudge for 17 years or their whole lifetime, waiting for that right moment to strike. Meanwhile, they have been striking themselves down every single living moment. Why? We don't have to. And that is one of the big examples of ignorance in action. Our own ignorance, because it is depriving us of life, of joy. For the sake of, well, you did that thing to me. You harmed me. You did something horrible to me. Who is it getting hurt first? It might have happened years ago, it might have happened yesterday, but the person might have or might not have known that they're doing this. That's their thing. Our job is to deal with this as soon as possible because we are spreading poison, venom into our system every single time we think of it. Even if we were wronged, even if they were wrong and we were the victim, it doesn't matter. Ultimately, you have a big obstacle that is stopping you from living. They might know that they damaged you, or chances are they might have moved on. Meanwhile, you're waiting for them to crawl to you on their knees to apologize. I'm so sorry. And that might never happen. Usually it never happens. So I said something that has happened in the past, okay? What we do over time is we add stories to it. Now we're making it more personal. It happened once, but you have to keep the pizzazz. You have to add more spices to it to make it interesting for the mind to go back to again and again. Even if it is you who have done the bad thing, now you start beating yourself up and say, how could I? I'm such a terrible person. And now you start beating yourself up. It's the same thing. Earlier, you were beating yourself up for being the victim. Now you're beating yourself up because you're the perpetrator, the one who caused the pain. Again, what do we have? Obstacles. So the heart is being squeezed. That's why many people have ulcers. They can't eat. They can't swallow. Ulcer is like when there's like an opening. It's like in the tissue. It's like leakage. And it's not easy to heal. What this also turns us into is becoming jaded. We become rough, rigid, conceited. You did that to me, and I did all those wonderful things to you, and you stabbed me in the back. That becomes a wonderful story for me to tell myself. But also it gives me that, what we call in English, American vernacular, is one-upmanship. Like, now I have something over you. I beat you. How? Because I have something on you. You did something terrible to me, and I have been the better person. Conceit, which is also prideful. Conceit in Buddhism, has three aspects. You are better than me, so I'm in a lower position. I am better than you, so I am in a higher position. And you and I are equal, so it has, those three aspects to conceit. It's not just being prideful when we say conceit in the English language. So pride also blocks us from becoming human. It's very difficult for a prideful person to have a moment of genuine love because they're too invested in having a certain image. That's what I'm expected to do. That's why these people, when they come home, they don't know how to play with their child or be affectionate toward their loved ones. Because they don't know how it feels to be normal anymore, because they've become so stiff. And then this is a term I heard years ago, and it's now all throughout, like the English-speaking world. It's hurt people hurt people. Whoever's been hurt and they don't take care of their pain, soon enough will end up hurting people. In therapy, some therapists actually will say, well, he just had a rough childhood. People abused him, or they abused her. That's why she ended up being a very abusive mother, for example. So that's dangerous to say something like that, because it's almost like you're being permissive. Oh, it's okay. She just had an abusive parent, so that's why she's like this. That's wrong, first of all, because every person is responsible for their own actions. We know that. But why don't we go ahead and heal people? Can you heal people? Can we say that? In fact, if you're a healer, a true healer, chances are you've been hurt. That's why you healed. Right? So let's change this. Healed people. Heal people. But everybody is too busy playing the mudslinging game, slinging mud at each other. Yeah, but I have mud on me. That's why I'm slinging mud at you. But it's like, eye for an eye. People still follow that. Eye for an eye. That means the world is going to end up being blind. Somebody has to put an end to it. In Buddhism, Lord Buddha says, even even. If two people catch you, hold you down, and they bring a big saw, you know, the ones that they cut down big trees with, one person holds one handle, the other one. Even if they cut you in half, he says, he's saying this to the bhikkhu. If you have any kind of a tiny little thought of hatred towards those two people cutting you in pieces, you are not practicing what I'm teaching. Imagine, do you know of someone who's able to do that? Somebody cutting you alive? You're not like in a coma. You're feeling what they're doing. And somehow you're managing to stop yourself from having hatred towards these people. That's the kind of bigness of the heart that we're talking about. And metta does give you that, the more you practice. But most importantly, we cannot practice without forgiveness. It's impossible. Because forgiveness also shows us appreciation, gives us gratitude. Gratitude. All of you have knees, legs. What would it be like to miss one, not to have one? Would you prefer not to have one leg? I don't know of anyone who in their right mind will say yes to that. How about feet? You have 2 feet. If you get up, you're not going to fall. You don't need crutches. That's a good thing, right? How about eyes? Each one of you has two eyes. Imagine one of them was not there anymore. You're blind. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's a terrible thing to miss an eye. You see, I just gave you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 reasons to be grateful. So today when you go home, I need you to get a piece of paper. You can start now. Some of you are holding papers. And start numbering 1 through 100. 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 100. And I need you to write down 100 things that you are grateful for. I just gave you 6. You can use them. No cheating. You have ears too. You have nostrils. Imagine you didn't have nostrils. How are you going to breathe? Through your mouth. You keep doing that, you're going to get sick. Because the nostrils have special hair-like things that stop toxins to go into your lungs. The mouth doesn't. That's why if you breathe through your mouth, you're going to get sick. So I'm glad we have nostrils, etc. How about the billions and millions of holes that you have in your pore of your skin? When it gets too hot, what does your body do? Turns on the natural air conditioning system of your body. Sweat comes out. The sweat glands operate. So you cool down. You see? Or when you're in a cold place, what does the body do? You start shivering. What is that? The body's way of creating friction. That's the natural heating system. There you go. You see examples. And I did not leave your bodies. We're just still there in that small vicinity. So before you go starting your day, can you stop and make these notes of gratitude to you? Already you're opening your heart, by the way. Because gratitude immediately causes you to soften. You remember the rigidity? This starts to fade. This starts to fade. You start to forget some of the stories. They don't have such a strong grip on you as they did before. Why? Because you're not taking it too much, like to heart. You're becoming less and less tight with yourself, looser. Even your walk becomes looser. It doesn't feel like you're carrying the world over your shoulder. So, here is a good point to remember. The inability to forgive equals the inability to love. So if you see somebody who says, I just can't, I can't feel love. What they're saying is, I'm not willing to forgive yet. You don't feel love means inability to live. Really. Yeah, you have a pulse. You move around, people looking at you, yeah, this is a live person. But for all intents and purposes, you have no idea what living is. You don't know joy. You don't feel someone else's pain. You don't feel compassion. And that's what human beings are becoming. When you have the whole media is pushing for AI, robotics, this, that, yes. Human beings are being told that, oh, in 100 years' time, human beings are no longer needed. It's all going to be robots. All these people who say such things need to be put in an insane asylum. They should be jailed for saying such things. It's just crazy. Why? Because our ancestors have come through so much to get us here, to learn how to be beautiful to each other. And now they're saying, oh, you're just going to be nothing but a robot. And now we're trying to also put chips inside the brain of a robot so that they can become more like human. Do you see how obnoxiously stupid this is? So inability to love comes from inability inability to live comes from inability to love. Inability to love comes from inability to relinquish, meaning to forgive. There's a term in Buddhism, it is in Pali, upadana. It means grabbing and not letting go. This is my image of me. You did this to me. This is who I am. This is my name. This is my culture. This is my, I don't know what, identity. This is my past. Don't you dare touch it. This is my gender. This is my hair. All craziness. Because life, look at the trees. The trees keep giving us leaves. We breathe because of them, you know. They take carbon dioxide, they give water, they give oxygen to us. They give fruits, beautiful shade in the hot weather. Tons and tons of birds come in and nest. Families of animals are living there. Wonderful ecosystem. They never hold on to things. And the roots keep moving. They never stay the same. The roots are just there for the xylem and phloem because it's the channel system to take water and nutrients back and forth. Even that is not fixed, even though it looks like it's not moving. But that's what we do. Upadana. But holding on to what? The dead past and the unborn future. The dead past. Why dead? Because it happened over there. Can you go and resuscitate the past? You can try in your memories, but in reality, it is gone. I don't know of anyone who's been able to go back into the past and fix some things and come back and say, see? It's impossible. How about the future? I have to do this and this because I have plans for the future. Or I am protecting myself by being jaded because I have reasons. You have to listen to me. I am becoming like that, conceited because I've been hurt. I don't want to be hurt again. See, that's another thing. When I was a therapist, people would come and, why don't you open your heart? It's okay. It's like, no, I'm going to protect myself because I don't want to be hurt again. It's like the tree, it says, I'm never going to give you fruits. Why? Because every time I give an avocado, You guys come and snatch it and you take it away and you never come and say thank you. It's stupid. Simply stupid. The sun keeps us warm. It gives life every single day. Does it come the next day knocking on your door, says, hey, you owe me? Or the rain? That's life. But we treat ourselves special. The past is dead, Lord Buddha says. Stop holding on to it. How about the future? It's not even born. What are we talking about? So we have to stand in the infinity that only can happen in the present moment. Now, here. If I'm going to change my life, here is where I can change it. So if you could approach your meditation session like that, as if you're sitting in because you are, not as if, in infinity. Infinity of what? Possibilities. Because every single one of us still has images of ourselves as we thought ourselves to be in the past and how we don't want to be in the future. Again, you are caught in the shackles of past and future. We're stuck. We're not alive. That's why people are simply living in their past. How could you live in the past? Through being stuck in your thoughts. You did this to me. He did that to me. You stop living. But everyone wants to be alive. Everyone wants to be happy. It's like those business students who want to be the owners, the CEO of their companies, but then when you go and ask them, what's the company name? What are you going to sell? Where is it located? Where's your office? They don't know because it's a cowardly living. A person who does not live with forgiveness is a person who does not live with metta. And if you cannot live with forgiveness, you are living a life of a coward, plain and simple. And most of the human beings on this planet, sorry to say, we're just a bunch of cowards. Because it's easy when you think about the past, because it's kind of predictable, because it's done. And the future hasn't happened, so you haven't invested in any of it. It's not real. So you don't stay here in the, in the present, but you're jumping back and forth in these non-existent times. Like when we were children, my mother had a saying. She would say, it's easy for a person who's not in that situation to talk big about it. Let's say someone who says, well, when I grow up and I have children, I'm never going to let my children to behave like that or talk like that. And then my mom would say from the, not like we were undisciplined, we were very much the old-fashioned way. We were disciplined, But she would say, it's easy for you who have never experienced it to talk big. Be in the present moment. And one of the easiest way to do that is through forgiveness. Why? Because forgiveness with love means that the person is gutsy, courageous. That's why you might be 150 years old, but when someone looks at you, if you live like this, you feel like you're 15. You're so alive. Because you don't carry the burdens of the yesterday with you. You don't carry it under your eyes, on your shoulders. Is this helping you so far, whatever I'm sharing? I see some smiling faces. Do you have questions? Chances are there might be, because I hit on some areas, but
And then what are the Buddhas referring to? Buddha teaching forgiveness?
I don't know. For those people who, because this is being recorded, the question was, what are the suttas where Lord Buddha is talking about forgiveness? I don't know off the top of my head because I don't have a photographic memory, but I cannot count how many times I have seen situations where Lord Buddha not only talks about it, but actually lives it. I can give you examples where I think it was in Chula Malunkyaputta Sutta. Malunkyaputta was the notorious bhikkhu who used to say, always, he was very argumentative in a sense. And one day he comes to Lord Buddha and says, Bhante, I have 10 questions. If you don't answer them, I'm going to leave. I'm going to disrobe and leave. And he starts asking the questions. Does the Buddha live after his death? Does the Buddha not live after his death? Which means, what happens? Is the universe without an end? Things like that. Is there a soul type of a thing? So he has 10 questions like that, and Lord Buddha says, hold on. When you were ordaining, you were becoming a monk, did I promise you I'm going to answer such questions as a condition? And he says, no, Bhante. And he says, stupid man, foolish man. Why are you coming to my doorstep and saying, I will leave until you tell me these answers? And then he lives like this. We have the beautiful example of the arrow, the person who gets shot. And Lord Buddha gives the analogy, the metaphor of the arrow because of Venerable Malunkyaputta. He says, you're like that man who's walking in the middle of the piazza, the main street in town, and he suddenly gets shot with a poison arrow in his leg. He falls and he's about to die. His relatives, loved ones come, a doctor comes, and he says, oh, hold on, no one touches this. I need to first know who was the person who shot me. I need to know their name, their last name. I need to know which family they belong to. Are they Brahmin class, Kshatriya class, merchant class? What type of arrow did he use? What type of poison did he? So the list is long, and Lord Buddha says, what do you think? Is he going to stay alive much? He says, no, Bhante. Even if he gets one of those questions answers, he would already be dead by then. He says, that's what you're doing, you idiot. You're putting all these things. Now, decades later, he still isn't trying hard enough, that bhikkhu. He comes and he says, Bhante, I'm sorry. Give me a tool. Give me a meditation object. And Lord Buddha scolds him. But then he forgives him. He gives him a tool, and finally, after all those years, he goes and becomes an arahant. Now, the objective, oh, by the way, there's also examples where Venerable, again, I'm very bad with the sutta title and the name, unless I'm covering it. But there's a sutta where I've covered a few years ago, where there was a bhikkhu after the Vassa who makes an accusation against Venerable Sariputta. And he says, oh, he disregarded me. He said goodbye to all the other monks, but he ignored me. And he did this, and he rubbed his robe against my face disrespectfully. He abused me. And Lord Buddha sends someone, a novice monk, after Venerable Sariputta. He says, come. So Venerable Sariputta comes back and with his students, because he was the chief disciple. He had so many monks. And he says, yes, Bhante. And he says, this man is accusing you of something. And tell us the accusation. And he says, this and this. Do you recall having done this? He says, no, Bhante, I didn't do it. And Lord Buddha turns to him and he says, are you still sticking to your story? He feels bad. He says, I'm sorry, Bhante, I made it up. I felt jealous because everyone's attention is on Venerable Sariputta. And he says, quickly apologize. Otherwise, bad things will happen to you because he's an arahant. So anyone who accuses, spreads rumors, harms physically or in any way a noble disciple, very bad things will happen to them, because these are called noble for a reason. They are the light of this planet. So here was an example of Venerable Sariputta. And there's another about Venerable Sariputta. By the way, a book that can really be helpful is Helmut Hecker and Bhikkhu Bodhi's book with the title of Great Disciples of the Buddha. It's it's like a compilation of various suttas. It's a wonderful book. And in it, there are several examples of such examples. One of them about Venerable Sariputta again. Again, I forgot the name of it. I apologize. Where there's a Brahmin who hears from the students of Venerable Sariputta that he has such a tremendous patience. His patience is incomparable. So this Brahmin hears, and he says, enough, he says. I'm going to prove to you that your teacher is just like anybody else. He gets angry, this and that. And they forget about this. So the next morning, Venerable Sariputta, along with his students, is out in Pindapada. So, for the alms food and throughout the village. This Brahmin comes from the back and slaps him on the back of his, body. He's shaken, Venerable Sariputta. He stops for a moment, and then he continues. He doesn't even turn around and says, who was that bastard or something? Who did that to me? He doesn't do any of that. He just continues on his path with the bowl in his hand. Now his students, that's a different story. The students are ready to kill the guy. You did that to our teacher? Come over here. They're about to attack him. The man realizes what he did. This is not a normal person. And oh my, I was wrong. He quickly runs in front of Venerable Sariputta, falls on his knees, and starts crying, apologizing. Bande, I hit a saint. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. Please, please, please forgive me. I didn't know. And Venerable Sariputta says, if you're truthfully apologizing, I forgive you. And that's the end of it. Now the man, out of his guilt, he says, Bande, please come to lunch to my house. I forgot if it was the same day or the next day. Anyhow, Venerable Sariputta is now invited to the man's house, so he goes there. Now he goes there, he eats, and as he's coming out, the students start cornering the man. And they are going to attack him. And Venerable Sariputta says, what are you doing? These are his bhikkhus. What are you doing? They say, Bante, he hurt you. He struck you. You are the chief disciple. He says, okay, whom did he hit? Did he hit you? They say, no, Bante. He hit you. He says, he hit me and I forgave him right there. And they're so ashamed now. And they go and they tell Lord Buddha what has happened. And Lord Buddha tells them. You can tell that he was smiling when he was saying this. He says, my son Sariputta, he says, he is like Mother Earth. The earth, whatever you give it, whether it's filth, excrement, urine, garbage, trash, spit, vomit, blood, or gold, diamonds, beautiful things. It does not distinguish. It accepts everything. So whether you give Venerable Sariputta compliments or you accuse him, blame him wrongfully, he won't say anything. So he is the epitome of Kanti. of forbearance, of being patient and forgiving. So there you have also a wonderful example in Venerable Sariputta's, life. So that's not the only time where Lord Buddha mentions the compassion and the forgiveness of Venerable Sariputta. Now remember, this comes from Lord Buddha talking about his bhikkhus, but the bhikkhus' behavior has been incredibly influenced by their teacher. So we have so many examples and stories in the Nikayas. That's why I shared with you some. Does that help? I know you were asking for specific sutta names, but does this help, these stories? Sometimes we forget to consider that these beings, yes, they lived in a different time, maybe in a different country, but they were not living a totally different life than ours. They still had knees, they still had heads, so they would get headaches. Lord Buddha used to get bad backaches. We forget. They had their own issues, life situations. So Venerable Mahamoggallana was cornered, ambushed. The giants of that time, because they were very wealthy, had hired some thugs, about anywhere from 15 to 30 of them, paid them good money to attack him in his kuti. He was such a powerful bhikkhu because he was second to Lord Buddha in psychic abilities. And the giants thought that Lord Buddha is famous because of his famous bhikkhu, who is able to do everything you can imagine and not imagine. He could do it. He had that much power. So they were thinking, because of that student. So if we kill the student, all the support now goes back to Mahavir, the giants. So there was this rivalry there. So they attack him. He goes into his kuti from the Pindapada, sits there, and then because he was able to see what happens, he would know if someone was having negative thoughts, or even if somebody was coming close with bad intentions, he would know a mile away. So these people would attack him and he would disappear from the kuti. He would just disappear. Sometimes he would be so small, smaller than an ant, crawl out of the keyhole. So you might not believe this kind of stuff. But anyhow, he does this so many times, like 7 times over. Finally, he's like, maybe, and he was already over 80. He's like, what do these people want? And then he looks back into his past lives and he sees that eons earlier, many, many eons earlier, he had killed his own parents who were blind because he wanted to please his wife, because they could not have food for both themselves and mother and father. So the wife says, you have to take your parents away and get rid of them. So he takes them far, far, far into the jungles, but he doesn't leave them there. He kills them and then leaves the bodies there. This is happening eons, incalculable eons ago, but that karma was now returning to him. And he says, oh, I can't run away from these people. I have to let them finish the job. So the next time they come, they chop him into pieces. But because of his power, he puts himself back all bloodied, and he goes because he did not pay respect to Lord Buddha yet. Because you cannot just die as a chief disciple without paying respect to Lord Buddha. That's one of the reasons, you're a chief disciple. You just can't die like that. So he puts himself back, torn up to pieces, but he shows up bloodied. And he bows to Lord Buddha and he says, Bhante, this is it. I'm going. So I came to pay my last respects. And he says, Moggallana, if you have the energy, go ahead and give your brothers in the Dhamma a final Dhamma talk. And he says, yes, Bhante. In that state, he gives them a beautiful Dhamma talk. And then he dies. But he did not have this much hatred in himself when they were cutting him into pieces. Remember the saw I said? That's from the simile of the saw. Oh, that's from the Majjhima Nikaya. It's the Kakachupama Sutta. That one I remember because it's a really famous one. That's when Lord Buddha says, even if they cut you. And there's also another sutta, Majjhima Nikaya, middle length discourse, same Nikaya. In it, it is the Punnovada Sutta. That's a good sutta as well, where you see, even though nothing has happened to the bhikkhu yet, but he says, I'm going to go to this country where they're not Buddhist. And Lord Buddha calls him and he says, do you know who's over there? Those are enemies of the Dhamma. They will kill you. They will torture you. They will say bad things to you. He says, Bhante, if they say bad things to me, about me, at least they don't hit me. I will be happy for that. And Lord Buddha says, what if they hit you? He says, oh, Bhante, I will be happy that they're hitting me with their hands and not with clubs. And Lord Buddha says, what if they hit you with clubs? He says, oh, Bhante, I will be grateful that they're not cutting me with knives. And Lord Buddha says, what if they cut you with knives? He says, oh, Bhante, I would be grateful that they're not cutting my arms and head with sharp knives, swords. And he says, what if they do cut you and kill you? And he says, oh, Bhante, if they do that, any bhikkhu who has lived this noble life and is disenchanted is already sick of life. So we're kind of waiting for someone to get rid of it, to make it easy for us. So these people are going to do me a favor. And he says, okay, go to that far off place. You're ready. Because he had a soft heart. He did not hold any anger and grudges towards this potential threat. And by the way, he does go there, and he turned a big chunk of the population in that village into Buddhists. And some of them even became noble disciples. But he also became an arahant. But right after he became an arahant, after some time, even though he was still young, people do gang up and kill him. So he did die, but he didn't have this much hatred in his heart. So we have many, numerous examples, as you can see in this short time, how many I've listed for you. So the key thing is not to be so obsessed with our stories. That's when we get a crowded head. Crowded with information, crowded with unnecessary details. You disrespected me when I came over in 1946 over here and you did this. Yeah, but that was like 80 years ago. Relax. We moved on. I'm sorry I hurt you. I will never do it again. Can we move on? So, any thoughts, questions? What if the other party doesn't want to move on? The priority is with you because you're living your life standing on your own 2 feet, breathing through your own 2 lungs. You cannot dictate what the other person thinks, feels, or behaves like. But you can dictate what you could do. So often I resemble this to being tied at the waist to someone else with a bond that is unbreakable, almost. It's almost like an umbilical cord that ties you both together. And that takes you from life to life, by the way. There are cases in the suttas where, in the Dhammapada especially, where there were 2 women who were going right, after each other, because one time, one of the women in past life was the reason why that particular woman lost her baby. And that woman swore that in her next life, she will come and take revenge by killing her and the baby. So this had been going on for many lifetimes. So they were switching. Sometimes they were animals, sometimes they were yakas. And then in this life, could you, Dhammadina, so they didn't, one of the women now was pregnant. She had a baby. But there was this evil spirit, where it's like a yakka, coming after, and she was showing herself to the woman with the baby. And so she was terrified because she now was coming to kill the baby. So now it was her turn. So they come in front of Lord Buddha. She runs with her baby, the human, and she puts the baby in front of Lord Buddha and says, please, please protect my child from this yakka. And the yakka, Lord Buddha calls her and says, come, come, come. So she's afraid. She comes and stands in front. And he says, is this true? She says, yes. Because, Bhante, you don't understand. She killed my son in past life. And then she turns and the woman says, but I don't remember. And Lord Buddha explains to them that this is not the first time they've done this. They've done this many times. Remember the one eye for an eye? So they've been killing each other's children life after life. So the Lord Buddha says to the woman, the mother, he says, I want you to take your child. You brought it to me, right? So you trust me. Take your child, and I want you to hand your child to the yakka. The yakka who wanted to kill the child. Now, the mother is shaking because what if you kill my child? You said you were going to kill my child, tear it into pieces. It's a powerful yakka. And Lord Buddha says, do you trust me? The woman basically says, yes, Bhante. She takes the baby, but she gives up all hope of getting the baby back alive. And that's trust, by the way. You can't trust a person who's trustworthy, by the way. What's the investment? What's there to risk? It's like a dead person. But you can only trust the person who might stab you in the back. That's when your trust becomes really valuable. It's really trust. So she hands over the baby, her baby, to the yakka. And the yakka holds the baby. And because she had been a mother, she starts crying. She starts crying. Now the yakka holds the baby as if it's her own baby. Holds the baby like this, starts caressing the hair, and she starts crying and holds her like this. So the yakka becomes a mother again. She had missed that opportunity. And the mother sees this, and now her heart softens. There's another example of apology, forgiveness. And she hands over the baby back to the mother and says, I will not harm the baby again. This ends right here. And Lord Buddha says, now you can have, this child can have two mothers instead of one. And that's what happens, because from that day on, the yakka protects. Nobody was going to mess with that baby. The yakka was now the second mother for this child. So, but the reason why I brought this up was because of the cord, like an umbilical cord, like ties us up. Even if you don't remember, that's the thing. That's why we have to forgive all the time. I forgive you, you forgive me, right? You have to do that to relinquish, because we don't all have thinking the ability to look back and remember all the things that we've done. We don't have that. We don't have a Buddha to tell us, you did this, you did that. So that's why every moment we have to be able to relinquish. Every time you breathe in, when you're breathing out, make sure it comes out with metta as you relinquish. Pull your hands away and say, I forgive you. You don't know to whom, it doesn't matter. But the attitude is important. Healed people heal people. Okay? So living like that. So thinking of a person like another person here. Think of like a belt, chain, even better, chain. And the chain that doesn't break on its own. In that sense, it's unbreakable on its own. So But each person has in his or her hand a sword. I think I talk about this in the book. You are the only person who can cut yourself free from that pain. Even if the person is, like you said, unwilling to let go, unwilling to forgive. You can cut this from your side and you release yourself. But these two women kept on going at it. They still held the grudge. The anger, the hatred was too strong. That's why we read today, hatred can never extinguish hatred, right? Those are words from the Dhammapada. That's real. Have you ever known someone who was able to finish the hatred of some enemy by putting more hatred? That's why I never understand when people say, I'm going to go and take revenge. They did this to me. Okay. Those were the conditions. Maybe they had bad karma. Maybe whatever. But now I'm here. Can I look at you with soft eyes? Can I forgive you? You might not forgive me, okay, but I forgave you. I'm okay. Because this is not the only life, you know. I want to set myself free. I want to be free because now this person doesn't have chains. This person does. Now they have to drag those heavy, heavy chains with them. That's their thing. You might go and approach this person and say, you know, I want us to, you know, if I'm the one who's done wrong, I would love for you to forgive me, like those, you know, those individuals. But if the other person says no, that's their call. You have done your part. And another question that comes up is, well, I don't want to forgive. That's a horrible thing, like especially if you have someone who is a rape victim. You know, or a father who's lost his daughter because someone killed the daughter and raped her and this and that. How could you? It's very difficult. It's unimaginable pain. What can the person do? So when you ask such a person, oh, forgiveness, they're going to laugh at you. You have no idea what pain is. But the key thing that I remind people of is, it is not the act, the action. You can never forgive the action of raping someone. You can never justify it. It's wrong. So when they think about forgiveness, they're thinking about what happened to the daughter. So when you're forgiving the person, not the action. Because the person might have changed now. He's 25 years older and he's on his knees. He's hitting himself. He's saying, I was under the influence of some drug. I'm so sorry. I know my sorry will never do anything. But I just want you to know that every day I feel like I'm in hell because of my stupid action. Again, the father in this case is the person who will have to decide. Also, the person who perpetrated, he has to also forgive himself if he's changed. So you see, it's not one person business, one person transaction. Another question that comes up is, well, I don't want to go hug them. Okay, I forgive them, I'm done, because that person is still the same, because sometimes you have a person who is not changed. They did that to you 10 years ago, but they're doing that to someone else now. So if you go and hug them, what are you hugging? Then you're going to really have resentment. That's not wise. In Buddhism, the practice is all about wisdom. So you must forgive with wisdom. That's a priority. Otherwise, you're saying, oh, I forgive you, I forgive them, I forgive. You're asking for trouble. People will take advantage of you because you're just saying, I'm stupid. Come, take advantage of me. No. In the book, I think I mentioned how forgiving without wisdom is like stepping into a boat that has holes in it. and expecting to cross the river or the big ocean. Well, I'm stepping into a boat, but I'm not checking the boat. Is this person trustworthy? Is it sinkable, this boat? Yes, okay. So you have a lot of responsibility in forgiveness. Make sense? Okay, what's the time? All right, so I'll stop here, and this I wanted to have you have this resource. I'll leave this on the board too, in case, because I know some of you are working with this theme here, as well as I see this a lot these days in meditators. Many people come to meditate, but they have this big boulder, big rock in their heart. And they want to forgive, but they don't want to become fooled, or they have so much pain. How can they have so much pain and still do metta? So we first have to understand the pain, and we have to work through the pain by giving yourself forgiveness first and cut the chain from your side. Because I didn't mention the possibility that the person who you're forgiving might already be dead. What do you do then? You cannot pick up the phone and call them and say, you know, I forgive you, because they're dead. What do? You go to the cemetery maybe, or you light a candle, you incense, and hope that they're hearing you. There's a few things that I suggest. One is from Gestalt therapy. It's empty chair, it's called. You go into a room, you close the door, make sure you're, and this is something that I would recommend with patients in the past, gradually, until you feel safe with those emotions, even with the thought of the person. Because sometimes even the memory of the person, the perpetrator or someone who harmed you, could be so much. So, once you're ready, let's say you're ready, you have two chairs in the room, you close the door, you turn off your phone, you're completely alone with the chair that's empty, and you're there. And you keep yourself at a good distance from the chair. You don't have to be so close. And then you look at the chair, and first I recommend you give yourself a lot of metta and forgiveness. Feel good, be in a meditative state, and give yourself a lot of smiles, telling yourself you're safe. Then you start to visualize the person who harmed you, or the person you harmed, but they're dead. There's that possibility. So let's say it has maybe it's a mother or a father. So what do? So you work with that. You say, maybe you can start talking about simple, casual things. Like, Mom, I love that you used to do this. Or I love this, the way that you used to laugh. Or when we used to eat together at the dining table. It was funny when you did this. So you're coming from a very neutral place. You're not jumping to the wound yet until you feel safe. Once you feel safe, you could say, for example, Dad or Mom, you never appreciated me for this, or I can't believe you went ahead and did that to me, or you allowed this to happen. How could you do that? You're my mother, you're my father, or you're my, I don't know, boyfriend, husband, girlfriend, my wife, my child. How could you do that to, etc. And then if you're very comfortable, then you will not see an empty chair. The person is alive for you. And ever so often, what I would recommend is for you to get up and to go and sit in their chair and pretend that you are them. And allow them to answer you. Oh, child, let's say if it's a mother. I didn't know I didn't know about that. I'm so sorry. You're right. I should have done this or something like that. But this takes time. This is not something that I push people in because it can really create agitation and anxiety. That's why the meditation path is the healthiest path. And don't force yourself into the empty chair. You have to feel it's okay. This is the best way of practicing putting myself in your shoes. You know? Any questions, thoughts? So I hope this is helping. So please try to look at the theme or feeling of forgiveness in a new light. But it has to start with you, always. Always. It's the easiest and closest place to start, right? Forgive yourself, even if it's hard. And one last thought, journaling is something I never stop talking about so highly. Some people have this feeling about journaling, they don't like it, but I don't care. It is a wonderful tool. Again and again and again, I never seen anyone doing journaling who did not benefit and benefit a lot. The only requirement is, maybe two. One is make sure that when you're buying the journal, getting the journal, make sure that it speaks to you. Have it have some character because it's going to be very personal. Second, don't edit yourself. Let everything come out. Don't clean it up. Oh, I can't say that. Or, oh, that sentence didn't come out right. Who cares? It's for you. You're not giving it to someone to read it. And every so often, I would like you to go back and reread it. Read things that, and it's not just good things that we write or bad things, everything that really is touching. Does it make sense? Is this helping? I see. You're not sure. Okay. All right. So I'll stop here and I'll allow you to go back to your sits. And until in about an hour, we'll do the Dhamma talk. Okay?